HIRAM Kellogg was the city planner for the city of Santa Ana, and so was responsible for putting in all the roads and sewer lines.
Well, my mother said what's striking to her was his big blue eyes. They stood out, and they almost scared her. They were so, they could see right through you.
At the last family story reunion, I told the story of a trip he took as a young teenager on his horse to Silverado Canyon, locally here, and was actually chased by a grizzly bear. And I believe that because the last grizzly killed in California was in that area some 50 years later. He escaped by jumping off a cliff, and the bear didn't choose to follow. He eventually went to engineering school. I think it was in Wilmington, it was local, so he became an engineer. And spent his life here. He was very successful.
One of his biggest accomplishments here was he was involved in building of the aqueducts for the Santa Ana River.
I've always suspected maybe his main job is to keep the Santa Ana River from overflowing.
He laid out the 91 freeway where it is today. In the day, one would build a public project like that, and you would use your own money to build the freeway, and then at the end of the whole project, sell it to the state as an entire project, financing it yourself. And he went all the way to the end of the project. As you know, he's an engineer who had not let the Santa Ana River run its banks. Well, the politics at the time said that the 91 freeway was going to be flooded. He knew it wouldn't be flooded because he designed the dams. So they condemned his highway.
I had to go to court over that. It took his health. I remember Dad saying that it took his health, and he did die of an ulcer of all things.
Years later, the Santa Ana Register came out with a headline, H. Clay Kellogg vindicated, and they laid the Santa Ana Freeway right on top of where it is today. He lost everything in the process, but that is our family lore of the early days of H. Clay Kellogg, as he was a very, very well-respected engineer.
And his biggest feat was actually bringing the railroad here to Santa Ana. And that was one of the things that made Santa Ana really the most viable community here in Southern California. It was actually more so than Los Angeles.
It was a different world.
His first wife died in childbirth. And as a family story goes, this Helen Vienna Kellogg, she was writing her father, Horace Kellogg, in Santa Ana. So her letters came to H. Kellogg, Santa Ana. And I recall seeing those letters. And so H. Clay Kellogg would receive letters from someone trying to write her father, and he wrote her back and said, "Why don't you come out and marry me? And I need a wife." And he said, "As long as you're not a redhead, I'm happy with anything that arrives on a train." And so thus she came, and they were married, I believe, on the train tracks. They were married as she arrived, and she had flaming red hair, as my beautiful Aunt Marilyn does too. She had a lot of red hair, and but they were married in that way, and I hear they were an interesting couple. And they had 4 children together.
One or two of his sisters and their husbands went over to Hawaii, Oahu, and really established the early pineapple industry over there. And being an engineer, H. Clay was hired to go over and help build the irrigation systems. HIRAM was the engineer. He eventually left, and the story I heard was that he thought life was so pleasant over there, anyone who stayed would never amount to anything. Didn't go with his Puritan ethic.
I know he wanted to build a beautiful house, and it was state-of-the-art in every way.
He had gas, of course, at first, and then put in, when electricity came in, he put the electric in, but he left the gas in, always with the idea that maybe the electricity wouldn't work. I wouldn't see him through.
It seems incredible to me, but he did sail back and forth to Hawaii and was so fond of ships that you'll see in the museum different areas of how the house resembles a ship. From the crow's nest to the top, the mast, which the mahogany stairs circle going up, and just the repeated pattern of ovals and rounds.
He fell in love with shipbuilding. We have many, many sketches of this house, and one of the things that he wanted in the home was an oval room, which is the dining room here.
The floor in the dining room is hand laid without a single nail. And every piece of the floor is put in perfect place, and it is a perfect oval. So the fronts of the drawers are perfectly carved, and the fronts and the glass in the windows are perfectly bowed.
And the idea came from a ship that he was on. The captain's quarters were a complete oval.
Grandma lived here all her life, till she was very old. So I can remember coming here to see her from the really earliest memories.
We did a lot of playing here with our cousins.
This was the family home.
I do recall the fascination with the rooms upstairs and the schoolroom that the kids do visit today. I recall wondering, did my grandfather really sit here? Is this really the desk where he studied?
And we played upstairs and ran up and down, and we even climbed up on the roof.
The other really unique feature is when you walk into the home, he wanted you to feel like you were coming onto a ship.
And there was a curtain, and so you go through the curtain and you catch a little stairway.
You see this large pole. Well, it's actually a mast from a sailing ship that was being dismantled. The whole home is built around this mast. So it's something the kids love.
That was really fun, you know, for us to run around.
For us, it was a really wild time. We would just run all over the house.
And he wanted you to feel, again, that whole sense of being on board a ship, so it looks like a crow's nest.
Like upstairs, he would do a lot of his photo work.
I imagine this was one of the first telephones that must have been in a house in Santa Ana.
The phone would ring and all this din going on. Me trying to talk to somebody on the telephone under the stairwell was something else.
Well, my grandfather, H. Clay Kellogg, then was a child growing up in this house. And he was also a civil engineer. He founded the Kellogg Garden Products Company, Kellogg Supply, Inc. in 1925.